technical issue that we had. Okay, so we're going back to action verbs, right? And we said that action verbs, it tells us or tells you what the noun does, right? So an action verb, it tells you what the noun does. And we made an example of she ate an apple, right? So ate, it is the action or the verb that tells us what the noun, which is she, does, right? So she ate an apple. We smile, right? So smile is the action verb that tells us what the noun we is doing, right? So now, if we look at our sentence that we have, which it says complete the sentence with the action verb. So complete the sentence with the action verb, right? My baby brother, yeah, the possible answer that they're giving us is number, right? So my baby brother number to 10 and sing songs, right? But now, if we put the word number within that sentence, then number just doesn't make sense at all, right? So if we talk about to 10 and sings a song, then we can then say that he counts, right? So our baby brother, or my baby brother, we can say counts, right? Counts to 10 and sings songs, right? So once again, I would like to apologize for the technical issue that we had. And luckily and excitedly, it is resolved, right? All right, so once again, an action verb, it tells you what the noun does. And in this case, counts is what the noun, my baby brother, does, right? So counts, it's an action. All right. Abby, possible answer that is given to us now faster than she used to, right? But the possible answer is given to us, right? Because remember, what we do sometimes on the app is certain either activities or lessons can be a bit very tricky because it is if it wants us to think of a possible answer, right? Or to come up with a possible answer. So if we look at the word now, Abby now faster than she used to. Now does not make sense at all, right? So now does not make sense at all, right? So now if we think of what Abby does now, then we can say Abby runs faster than she used to, right? So she runs faster than she used to. So we're going to say run, which is the action verb. So the action verb over here is run, and it tells us what Abby does. So run is the action verb, and it tells us what Abby does. Haley Haley down the hall with Eric, right? A possible answer or trick answer is strong. But now, if we add that word strong to the sentence, it says Haley strong down the hall with Eric. And the word strong, now, it does not go in that sentence, right? Which means that strong does not fit in or does not even make sense within that sentence at all. And once again, like I said, that certain words or certain answers or certain activities or lessons will be a bit tricky because they would want us to think of a possible answer, right? So in this case, strong does not make sense within the sentence, right? So down the hall with Eric. So what do we think Haley can do? Haley can walk, right? So we could say Haley walked. So Haley walked right? And that is the form of action, or that's the action verb that tells us what Haley did. So Haley walked down the hall with Eric. So our action verb is walked. And once again, an action verb, it tells us what the noun does. And in this case, Haley is the noun, right? And what does Haley do, or what did Haley do? She walked, right? All right. So once again, an action verb, it tells you what a noun does, right? And remember, it is the action, right? It is identifying basically the verb, but more of an action verb within that sentence. So now we're going to our test to test if we use action verbs. So complete the sentence with the action verb. Miss Maxwell time in the children's library, or Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. We need to choose the best possible action verb between time and works that shows the action that Miss Maxwell did or does. So, does Miss Maxwell time, or Miss Maxwell works in the children's library? We need to choose the best possible answer to complete the sentence that shows the correct action that Miss Maxwell does. All right, so if we choose, or if we select the best possible answer within the sentence, right, then we can say it is works, right? So Miss Maxwell works in the children's library, right? Because time just does not make sense, right? So Miss Maxwell works in the children's library. All right, the next one. Philip. Philip basketball, or Philip jumps higher than anyone else on the team. So Philip basketball, or Philip higher than anyone else on the team. We need to choose or select the correct action verb within the sentence. Is it basketball or jumps, right? We need to select the best action verb. All right, so if we choose the best action verb, or the correct action verb within the sentence, then we can say Philip jumps, because basketball just does not make sense. So he jumps higher than anyone else on the team. Nina games with her sister. So Nina prize games with her sister, or Nina played games with her sister. We need to choose the best possible answer, or the correct action verb within that sentence. So Nina prize games with her sister, or Nina played games with her sister. All right, so now if we choose the correct action verb within that sentence, then we can say Nina played, right? Because played, it tells us what Nina did, or what Nina does. So played. Prize just does not make sense within that sentence. All right, so now we're going back and we are going to identify action verbs, right? And remember, we said that an action verb, it tells you what a noun does, right? It shows us the action that the person does, right? So here we have ate as our action verb. She ate an apple, right? It tells us what she did, right? So now we're going to select the action verb within the sentence, right? And we're going to underline it. Eva buttoned her coat, right? So Eva buttoned her coat. We need to underline the correct action verb, right, within the sentence that tells us what Eva does or what Eva did. All right, so if we choose the action verb that tells us what Eva did, then we can say she buttoned her coat, right? So it's either she's it's almost like she's closing her coat, right? But she is closing it by fixing her buttons. So she buttoned her coat. So buttoned is the action verb that tells us what Eva did. Our dog Penny barks at Tess. Our dog Penny barks at Tess. We need to select the action verb within that sentence, right? And if we choose the action verb that tells us what Penny does, right? Or let's say what our dog does, because Penny is the dog, then we can say that Penny the dog, he barks at Tess, right? So what does the dog Penny do? He barks at Tess. So barks is our action verb that tells us what the dog Penny does. Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel. Colin digs in the dirt with his shovel, right? We need to select the action verb, right? And if we select the action verb, then we can say the action verb that tells us what Colin does, right, is digs, right? So Colin digs in the bin or the dirt with his shovel, right? So what does Colin do? Colin digs. So the action verb is digs. All right, so that is us identifying action verbs within our sentence, right? Basically, um, identifying the action, identifying what the noun is doing, right? So now we're going to the test, and we are going to select the action verb within the sentence, right? So Eva buttoned her coat. We need to choose the correct action verb. Is it buttoned or is it coat? So buttoned or coat, we need to select the action verb within the sentence. All right, so if we choose the action verb within the sentence, then we can say that buttoned is an action verb that tells us what Eva does or did, right? She buttoned her coat. Nicole pets the cat. Nicole pets the cat, right? We need to select the action verb between pets and cat. So the options given is pets or cat. What is the action that Nicole does, right? So we need to say what Nicole does. So Nicole pets the cat, right? It tells us what Nicole did. Dad watered the garden. So Dad watered the garden. We need to select the action verb within that sentence. Dad watered the garden. Is it watered or is it garden, right? We need to select the correct action verb within the sentence that tells us what dad does. And we can say that dad watered the garden, right? It shows us what dad does. So watered. All right. So that is basically action verbs, right? And we said an action verb, it tells us what the noun does, right? So if we are going to follow and we're going to look at the activity, right? It says we need to match the action verb, or let's not use that one. Let's go to this one. All right. You need to circle the verbs within each of the group words, right? So there are 10 different groups. So we need to specifically just identify the verbs within the groups. The first one is dog, cat, eat, bone. We need to select the verb within that group, right? And if we select the verb within that group, then we can say eat is the verb because it tells us what the subject is doing, what the noun is doing. Max took the babysitter, right? So what is the subject doing? Talk. Talk is our verb. Mother friend happy tells, right? Mother friend happy tells. So if we select our verb within that sentence, we can say tells. Open door to classroom. Open door to classroom. So open. You finish your homework. And there we have finish or complete, right? All right, so now if we go to the action verb worksheets, right? It says we need to circle the correct action verb within the sentence. He is hopping like a rabbit. So if we select the correct action verb in the sentence, then we can say it is hopping, right? It tells us what he is doing. Kate is drinking water. Kate is drinking water. So what is Kate doing? She is drinking water. So we're circling drinking, which is our action verb. I am eating an apple. I am eating an apple, right? So what am I doing? Eating and an apple. I am singing my favorite song, right? So what am I doing? I am singing my favorite song. They are studying together, right? It's like asking yourself, what are they doing? They are studying together. And then he is jumping over the wall. So what is he doing? Right? Because remember, the action verb it tells us what the subject or the noun is doing. He is jumping. Jumping is our action verb that tells us what he is doing. Anne is looking at her pet. Right? So what is Anne doing? Looking. Right? So she's looking at her pet. And the player is running with the ball, right? So what is the player doing, right? We can say that the player is running with the ball, right? And remember we said that an action verb, it tells us what the noun is doing, right? And in this case, it is the verb or the action verb or the action that shows us what the verb or the subject is doing. All right. So that is the end of our lesson grade twos on action verbs. And we said an action verb is it basically tells us what the noun does, right? And we focused on the use of action verbs as well as identifying action verbs within different sentences, right? So that is basically the end of our lesson. Once again, I would like to apologize for the technical issue that we had, as well as for the delay. I humbly apologize. Till next time, have an amazing evening further. Goodbye.